Welcome, SENS Talk.
Russell winds in, feeds it back across the track, and scores! Derick Fage makes it 2-0. Giroux, in alone, scores!
Tim Stutzla across, Kachuk score! The captain, Brady Kachuk, buries it with 1:18 to go.
See you later. Go, SENS, go.
Well, I think both he and I have lost track of how many Faces Magazine award nominations he has, including Best YouTube Channel, Best Sports Podcast. Well, listen, just look him up, okay? Brendan Plant joins me. He is the host of the SENS Talk podcast. Welcome back to the show. Great to have you here.
What an intro. I don't know if I deserve it, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course you do. I think you're up for like 4 or 5. I mean, that must feel great, right?
It's unbelievable. Last year, also a few nominations.
Yeah.
We won one, the Best YouTube Channel of Ottawa in 2023, and just being nominated is a great honor, but to win one also, I mean, of course, is an honor. So
Yeah,
it's just really cool.
absolutely.
It's just really cool.
For people that aren't familiar with the podcast, you're in your 11th year, so congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
I mean,
Thank
that's special in its own right, Brandon. But you know, what inspired you to start the podcast?
Yeah, so, you know, it was 2013 playoffs in April, and big SENS fan then, but obviously bigger now. And
Yeah.
I don't know, for some reason, my friend Noah and I, we just wanted to do a video before the Habs SENS series in 2013, or
Okay.
just around then, and kind of just took off from there.
Nice.
And I just kind of stuck with it since.
Well, let's talk SENS. The trade deadline, I know it seems far away at the moment, but there's already talk. We're hearing rumors around. When it comes to the SENS, what rumors have you been looking at that sort of stand out to you right now?
Well, the one that stands out for sure is the Chris Tanev rumors from the Calgary Flames, a rugged defenseman. He's in his final year with Calgary, so there's a lot of speculation that maybe a playoff team will trade him, but or trade for him, I should say. But the Ottawa Senators are very interested in him because if he comes to Ottawa, it wouldn't just be for this year. Let's just say Ottawa might not be in the playoffs this year. It's looking that way.
It's looking pretty bleak. Yeah.
But it's for the next couple of years. Ottawa doesn't have a lot of tenacity, a lot of grit on the blue line. He'd certainly bring it. He's also a veteran, which this team desperately needs. Top 5 youngest team in the National Hockey League in terms of average age. So this is a good defenseman that might be brought in this trade deadline, but they also might go after him in the offseason as well as a free agent. So we'll see.
34 years old, Tanev?
35,
Okay.
give or take, around there.
Like when you think about that, I understand, the grit and why you would want a player like that, but does that not concern you as far as age goes? Because he's going to want to sign a contract, as you said.
For sure.
An extension, right?
Look, if he's signing for more than 2 years, absolutely. That's
Okay.
where you're getting into
Okay.
the gray area, right? But
Right.
for a 1-2 year deal, I mean, you have Tyler Clevin coming up. Eventually here, you're going to have to make a decision on Eric Brandstrom. There's going to be a hole. And then once again as well, look, I mean, they need tenacity. They need grit on that blue line.
Yeah.
And if it's just for a year or two, just to help Tyler Clevin settle in, sort of like what Hamnick did with Jake Sanderson.
Right.
That would be huge. Because once again, this team next year, we said this year, but next year they have to make the playoffs. They have to. Tanev could be a big reason why.
What about on Ottawa's side when we look at the trade deadline? Tarasenko's names come up. Kubalik, which I think would be pretty difficult to try to trade him at any rate. But Tarasenko, any other players come up? And what do you think about Tarasenko?
I'll tell you one thing about Tarasenko. I understand if he wants to leave. I have no indication to believe he wants to leave. But if he wants to leave, I get it. He's in the latter half of his career, win another cup. I understand. If we can keep this guy, though, for another couple of years, kind of like Tanev, just like Giroux, this is the kind of guy that you need in the locker room. We're one of the youngest teams in the National Hockey League. He's a veteran. He's a cup winner. He's a play driver. He scores a lot of goals, has a lot of points as well. Very good player, a complement player, I like to call it, for that middle six, especially on that second line. With Kubalik, he's got a good shot. For that power play for any playoff team, they'd like to get him. And you're probably looking at a guy like Mark Kastelic, who wins a lot of faceoffs, nearly 60% in the National Hockey League in terms of his faceoff rate, and Brandstrom is other depth guys that teams might look at. But it's going to be more of a quiet trade deadline in terms of the players we sell compared to previous years, that's for sure.
Jacques Martin, took over as coach, and actually those first 10 games, we actually looked worse than what we saw with DJ Smith. But if we compare those first 10 games to, the last 10 games, quite a change, right?
Absolutely. And in the last game on Sportsnet, they did a very good graphic showing his first 10 and his last 10 games as Senator head coach. And the most notable changes, for sure, on the defensive side of things, but just in general, if you look at the shots against per game, it was roughly 35 shots against per game in his first 10 games taking over as head coach. In the last 10 games or so, 10, 11, 12, Jacques Martin has dropped that down to 25, 26 shots per game. The penalty kill, been bottom 3 worst in the league, which makes no sense. It's been one of their strong suits for a while.
Yeah, agreed.
It improved by 15, 20 points in the last 10 to 12 games. So on the defensive side of things, we've absolutely seen improvement. But it's just the power play. And we were speaking about this before the show, but the power play is lagging, and it just does. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and I hate to say it because, if I think of my favorite Sen of all time, it's pretty obvious for most people is Daniel Alfredsson, right, Alfie? He's been put in charge of the power play, and we haven't seen any production since he's taken over.
Absolutely, and it's a bit shocking because Daniel Alfredsson was a hell of a power play guy. He put a lot of goals in the back of the net on the power play, and the issue with Ottawa, in my opinion, on the power play is they're not utilizing the one-timer. We don't see Josh Norris taking those one-time shots. Tim Stützle, we're not seeing it. We're seeing a lot of passing, and they're getting chances, but once they get those chances, they're not putting it on net. And I know that sounds cliche, but it is the reality.
Yeah.
They're not putting enough shots on net.
Not enough traffic either, I don't think.
Exactly, and
right?
we saw it recently with Jacques Martin. They started putting Mark Kastelic out front. They had Yuri Smejkal when he was up here out front as well. So they've tried it at times, but they don't really go all in like they should in terms of putting men out front, and you got to do that. You got to create some chaos in front, and they haven't done enough of that. So I'm no expert by any means, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out that things need to be changed.
Yeah, it seems to be a very perimeter style of power play where we're not getting people, closer to the net. As you said, Norris in his typical spot for that one-timer, and I think for a lot of people, they felt that maybe that needed to change at some point because people would start expecting it. Well, that doesn't mean you go away from it completely. What do you think about Staios? Just to go back into the front office kind of thing, being named as general manager or naming himself as general manager. I'm sure Ann Lauer's the final say in that. What do you think about that decision?
Yeah, well, look, Steve Staios is an award. He won the OHL championship. He built a championship team in the OHL, so he has the championship pedigree. And I think as a general manager, especially with new ownership, you have to have trust between ownership and management. There's certainly trust there. They've worked together, of course. That's why he was brought in. And you've seen hires like Dave Poulin, for example. You've seen hires to help, create depth, I guess you can call it, for lack of better words, in the management side of things. I'd like to see
been lacking, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Without
across the board with this franchise for years. We're going to take a quick break.
Yes.
He's going to stick around. You're going to stick around. We'll continue some Sens talk right after this. Don't go anywhere.
I like that.
Welcome back to the show. We continue our conversation around our Ottawa Senators. The host of the Sens Talk podcast, back with us, Brandon. Let's talk goaltending, because this is another one that I think frustrates fans to no end. We've had goaltending problems for so many years. These goaltenders, they go to other teams, and all of a sudden they turn their game around. Korpisalo signed to a 5-year contract. He's struggled mightily. People are already talking about buying this guy out in the offseason. I don't think that's a good idea necessarily, but just like to get your thoughts on the goaltending.
Such a fascinating player, I'll be honest with you. So fascinating, because if you look in tight, he makes some big stops. He's an athletic goalie. He's a big goalie. But for some reason, if you look at the advanced analytics, it really doesn't make any sense. From the long distance, 50 feet out or so, he's the worst goaltender for save percentage and goals saved above expected in the National Hockey League. It doesn't make any sense. From 40, 50 feet out, glove side, top shelf, every single time. I don't know if that's a positioning thing. I don't know if that's a confidence thing. But for some reason, the tough saves and tight that should probably go, and he's stopping. But the shots that, frankly, you and I probably could maybe get in front of and get a good piece of. Maybe.
You haven't seen me skate, pal.
You know?
I'm not even good stationary on skates.
But the point simply is, look, he's obviously better than you and I in goaltending, but it's just shocking to see some of the goals that go in because he's a good goaltender. You know, a lot of people give him a hard time. They say that he never really had a strong pedigree in the National Hockey League, doesn't have a strong resume. That's false. It's false. He has a strong resume. Took the Kings last year to the playoffs as well. It was a 1A, 1B situation in Columbus, but he started a lot of games, put up good numbers on a mediocre, Columbus Blue Jacket team. No offense to the Blue Jacket fans out there. So,
but are you willing, as a fan, are you willing to give this guy more time?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Of course.
Okay, I'm in that same.
He started like 20 games or so. I mean, we're going to buy him out. You can't do that. That's not fair.
Again, you mentioned too, talking about changes in the front office.
Yeah.
We've seen changes in analytics. We've seen changes in trainers, and then we had a goaltending coach change as well.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen necessarily a big change from that position yet, but that doesn't mean it's not coming. We just talked about Jacques Martin, right?
Exactly.
Same sort of situation with Jacques Martin. It's like, let's be patient. Give this guy a little bit more time. The defense. Look at did you see the reaction right there? But do you not think there's been some improvement on the back end?
For sure. For sure. I think we've absolutely seen some improvement. And, that's why it's so shocking that some of these goals are going in, because the defense, like I already mentioned, the shots against per game have dropped nearly 10 shots per game. The penalty kill has improved by nearly 20 points. We're seeing the Senators carry the puck far more, and they're jamming the neutral zone far more as well. So it's instead of letting, the guys walk in on the opposing team and just dropping back, they're pressuring, they're forcing them out to the outside, to the board areas. So it is a very interesting situation right now with the Ottawa Senators. But look, they're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're playing a little better, but it might be a little too late.
And I mean, that's the other thing that I think fans get concerned about is, we've seen it the last few seasons where we've started really slow and then they've progressed, and all of a sudden near the end of the season they start getting better. They start winning some of those games. As fans, we go, stop winning. Do you think it's important they get like a top 10 pick because of the situation they find themselves in right now?
With all honesty, I'm going to be very selfish about this. I make YouTube videos after every game.
Yeah.
The better they play, the better I do. I have more fans in the comment section. We can go back and forth. It's just more fun. The vibes are much better when they win.
Right.
Unselfishly and in terms of helping the long-term trajectory of the franchise, you probably want to lose some games and get a better draft pick, but I'll never hope the Sens lose. Even in the deep rebuild years, right. I hope they win. It's a sport. You got to have fun, right?
You and I talked about this before the show as well. That prospect pool is dwindling, right?
Yes.
Last year we didn't have a pick in the top 3 rounds, right? If you look at Belleville, which I know I've been impressed. Actually, they're playing as a team. They've played well, but Cruikshank's great. But beyond Cruikshank and Cleven. I don't know, Cleven. Do we have anybody that's an NHL player?
Yeah, there's a real issue there, I'll be honest. And that's what happens when you have some terrible asset management. You have to trade picks to get rid of cap, for example, like Zaitsev for one, Murray for another. And then you also have a lot of your guys that you brought up during the rebuild now on the team, really. Greg, Shane Pinto, the list goes on. You still have a couple guys there, like we kind of alluded to. Tyler Cleven, going to be a great, I think, 4 or 5 defenseman, the National Hockey League fiscal guy. Angus Cruikshank, friend of the show, absolute beauty. I'm a little biased in this regard, but he had a great overtime win against Syracuse. Great Sully. So
for sure.
He's right. So he's a good player. But then you have a guy like Lassie Thompson, who is a first-round draft pick of a few years ago, who likely, it's been reported, will be going back to Finland to play pro hockey next year. It's just a rumor, but that's what's expected. So they do need to restock the cupboard a little bit in the prospect side of things.
Any other rumors that you give any credence to? Chychrun's been talked about a lot. I think he's spoken about it. Yeah. No concerns with his attitude and whether he feels like he wants to stay with this franchise?
From everything I've heard and everything we've seen in the media, there's no reason to believe that Jacob Chychrun wants to leave the Ottawa Senators. It's his hometown, why would he want to leave? He cried when he got traded here, right? So I never bought into those rumors, to be honest with you. I think he wants to stay, but I also think there's some truth to it. There's a lot of cap implications around his next contract. There's only 2 teams in the National Hockey League with 2 defensemen making $8+ million. That's the Ottawa Senators, of course, Chychrun and Chabot. Sanderson and Chabot. And for the New York Rangers, it's Trouba and Fox. So there's a reason for that. So either somebody has to be dealt on the blue line, maybe someone in the forward core's dealt, but somebody will have to be moved to alleviate some cap space to keep Chychrun in.
I got 20 seconds left.
Yes.
Very quickly, how do they vote for you for the Faces Magazine nominations you're up for?
If you go to the Faces Magazine Ottawa website, I believe there's a portal there. We're up for all those 5 different nominations. You'll see us in digital and social and in media under those categories,
Wonderful.
and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Wish you the best of luck.
Wish you the best
You'll
of
be
luck.
back
Thanks so much.
March 11th?
Yes, of
Talk
course.
about the trade deadline and
Be my pleasure.
see if anything happened. You never know. We'll be back with more right after this.